I'd say to the restaurant too, you receive it.
Let's come up this side. Hello and welcome to the vlog. Hello. So we are here today at Alton Towers and we are going to be doing the iconic house and gardens tour. So this is going to be a really different day here for us at Alton Towers, because normally when we're here we come for the rides, we come for a fun day out. Obviously this is going to be just as fun, but it's going to be a little bit more relaxed and chilled. So Alton Towers, as you probably very well know, has got some very iconic sort of ruins here. The gardens are absolutely fantastic. That was the main sort of selling point of Alton Towers when it originally opened. Obviously it wasn't a theme park back in sort of history. So this is going to be really interesting and a really nice change for us today to be able to go and sort of explore with a guided tour. The cost of the tour was only £10. It was sort of really cheap. And yeah, we get this nice little headset, so obviously we get to hear everything. You're not going to be able to hear everything that's coming along with us today, but we'll put in some highlights, show you some clips, and just take you around these sort of beautiful areas, you know, the places that we don't normally explore. Because if you've ever been to Alton Towers, you will know that sort of the gardens are huge and they take absolutely ages to walk through, and there's lots and lots of steps and there's lots of sort of walking. So yeah, we're sort of ready for today. We've sort of taken it all in our stride, sort of taking it easy, but we're really looking forward to seeing sort of what's on offer and just being able to get to explore places that, you know, we've probably not explored before. Also very looking forward to going into the house. I believe we get to go up onto the roof and get a little bit of a panoramic view of that one. So come along with us and we will show you all around for this tour.
This is Kevin, this is Jake. Obviously we're going to introduce ourselves formally because it would be rude not to do so, and I'll be doing that in due course. Now firstly, I'm just going to explain one or two health and safety points. So I want you all fit and ready because we've got some 2.5 kilometers of walking to do, some 350 well-worn steps, which of course have been walked upon for some 200 years. Also we've got low light conditions in the gardens and particularly in the house. So you are going to hear me loads of times say, watch your step, watch your step. Do not worry, I am not losing it. It is purely for your safety because of uneven steps and tree roots. So when you hear that magic phrase, watch your step, you know exactly what to do. Now, we're not expecting a fire alarm to go off in the house. If it does, we'll escort you to the nearest fire point. Also, if any of you feel poorly, then contact Jake or Kev and they'll come to your assistance. And I finally ask that everyone put their mobile phones on silent and refrain from using them, simply because I want you, we want you to immerse yourself in the experience. Take as many photos as you like, video wars, fine, lovely, fine and dandy. You're welcome to do so. We want you to enjoy yourselves. Now, formal introductions, as I said, it would be simply rude not to introduce ourselves. So once again, I'm Steve and I'm the guide for today. I'm leading the tour of the gardens and the house. It's about 2 hours, just over. First part the garden, second part the house. You'll go in the historic banqueting hall, the chapel, and on the roof itself. Some many interesting tales to pass on to you. Some you may know, some you might have never heard of. So I've been here for 6 years, and we always say give an interesting piece of information to everyone. And my interesting piece is I was the very first British battlefield guide at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in Montana in the USA when I was 18, which in my case is some time ago, and that was in 1984, and I was assigned to the position by the then President Ronald Reagan. Over to you, Jake.
What an act to follow. Thanks, Stephen. I'm Jake. I'm one of the VIP experience managers. Firstly, apologies for the technical issues with the headsets, but as we move through the gardens and the ruins, obviously in the ruins it'll just be us, so you'll definitely be able to hear us, and in the gardens it's a lot quieter than it is out here, so you definitely won't have any issues hearing our loud voices. Like I said, my name is Jake, and when my first job here was in entertainment as a Scarefest performer in the Alton Mine Tours, so I know lots and lots about the ruins, which we'll go into later, and maybe a few ghostly experiences. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to ask those later on.
I'm careful, that's just no. So I've worked 6 years on rides before. I wasn't here last year except for I worked on the attic as a host last year, and then this year I'm on Sounds and Mysteries. So some of you might have remembered me if you went through the turnstiles this morning. But then I get to go home after this, so that's the interesting thing for me. If you do want to ask me about any of the rides, on that, I was going to say area 4, which you won't know. So 13 metre Hex, Oblivion. I used to work on them, operate them. So obviously not during the tour, but like when I'm on the roof, when I've got some quiet time, or even after the tour, I'm happy to answer any questions. And that's about it, and I'm not getting excited otherwise.
So we're going to start the tour. We're just going to stop very briefly at the entrance of the tour because I'm going to sort of do a brief introduction of some of the things that we're going to discuss today. So this way, please.
So, as you may have just heard there was a little bit of a technical issue with the headsets. So, although in a way that sort of worked to our advantage because then we sort of get to give you the full experience of the tour, and it's not me relaying it, so you're going to get to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So, I'm very excited for this.
So, when we go into the gardens are going to chiefly date back to the early 19th century, and I'll be discussing the 15th and 16th Earls of Shrewsbury. But also, I'll be discussing the people who lived here thousands of years ago, because people have lived in this area for millennia in the valley. Also, I'll be discussing when the Romans came here, also the great battle that was fought over 1,000 years in these very gardens, and also after the Norman conquest, a family of ambitious Norman knights who came over here and established a foothold in the Churning Valley where we are today. And also we'll be meeting a very, very angry bear. Now, the first little sign here is Mr. Dennis Stanford Bagshaw, died in 1988. And the plaque reads simply, was responsible for the restoration of the gardens to the former splendour. He made the desert smile again. Well, we're going to go up to our first monument, and there's going to be a similar inscription simply saying he made the desert smile. So what does that mean? What's that all about? Well, you're about to find out. Step this way. So welcome to the Karagic Monument, or I should say this is a replica of the Karagic Monument of Lysicrates, which was built in ancient Greece near Athens in 344 BC. Now this was built considerably later, of course, millennia later, 1830 to be precise. The top is made of cast iron, and it was made at the Britannia Foundry near Derby in 1829 and placed here in 1830. So who is the marble bust of? Well, the marble bust is of the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury, Charles Talbot. So how come Charles Talbot's got such a fine monument, and what does it mean he made the desert smile? Well, This was a man with ambition, a man with a dream. All this was barren land, and what he wanted to do, what Charles Talbot wanted to do, was create something beautiful. He wanted to create gardens that were so beautiful that they would be the envy of any of the great stately homes in North Staffordshire, even in the country. And he set to work in creating a fantastic, beautiful garden. Now, sadly, he didn't live to see the gardens completed. His nephew, who became the 16th Earl of Shrewsbury, John Talbot, carried on with his uncle's work, and the gardens you see today here and out in front of the house are the result of John Talbot's work and endeavours. But he venerated his uncle so much, he thought so much of his uncle and the idea and all the things that his uncle did, that he had this monument placed in his honour. Now, it was restored in 2023, that's why it looks so superb. And we've got an S in the shrubbery. Does anyone know what that stands for at all, at a guess?
Shrewsbury.
That's right, Shrewsbury. Now, you're going to see a few S's for Shrewsbury scattered around the gardens. So that stands for the Earl of Shrewsbury. Now, we're going to go around to a first beautiful viewpoint at the back of the monument. You've got a wonderful view down the valley, and also I've got some quite nice facts and figures regarding the gardens themselves. So this way, please. Now, you've got an absolutely wonderful view of the valley, and obviously the two great earls, this is a result of their work. Now, we've got just over 100 acres of gardens, and also if you add the woodland together, it makes about 550 acres. Well, this is the fact. You may have gone in wandering around the gardens before and seen little metal clips on the trees, and there's a series of numbers with AT, which stands for Alton Towers. Well, what are the numbers? The numbers prove that the trees have been registered and documented and put on computer. Because we're in a conservation area, the trees cannot be chopped down. Now, if you wander around and you see the little clips with the numbers, these are trees that have been registered. A total of 15,000 trees have been registered in these gardens. And if we included the unregistered trees and the trees in the woodland, we'd be looking at over 30,000 trees. Many of them are self-setting and many of them are sycamore trees. We've got 9 gardeners and 2 arborists who work here. They work here behind the scenes when you're enjoying yourself, having something to eat, or on the right. We're often working behind the scenes to make the gardens lovely. When we go down further down into the valley, and we will, you'll notice quite a few ponds, and I will repeat this a couple of times. We've got all the ponds and the water that we see all the time today. There's not natural ponds here. Broad snow, and stories broad sweat here, the ponds here. Now, back in the garden, July 1849, Alton Railway Station opened up just outside here, and on the 1st of April 1850, the following year, the first passenger train trips were advertised to come to here, to Alton Towers. Now, if you were a 3rd class passenger, you could alight at Alton Station and wander around the grounds. Happy days. And if you were a 1st or 2nd class passenger, you could even come into these gardens and wander around. But not everyone was happy with the arrangement. The head gardener at the time petitioned the North Staffordshire Railway Company, asking for payment for all the extra duties he got to carry out with a great influx of guests. There is no record as to whether he was paid or not. So on that note, we're going on to our next iconic site, which is the Talbot Hound Fountain. So this way please, and without a mic, watch your step.
So cute.
Just wait for everyone to catch up. Unlike when I've got my headset, I can speak and we can all listen and walk at the same time. I don't want to leave anyone behind. So we're going to walk down this walkway here, and this is called Her Ladyship's Walk, also known as the Dahlia Walk. Now when we all come walking down here, I want you to look to your left at the wall. The wall's called a scalloped wall, and it's called a scalloped wall because of the shape, and it's made to make you feel enclosed within the gardens, and that's exactly what the designers wish, that you had an enclosed feeling. So along the Dahlia Walk, Her Ladyship's Walk, we're going to go. Look to your left, and then we're going to stop briefly at the Talbot Hound Fountain. So this way please. So welcome to the Talbot Hound Fountain. As you can see, it's a dog on there, and usually water comes out of the dog's mouth into the trough. Now in some guidebooks it's listed as a war fountain. Well, that's absolute complete nonsense. What it is, it's a trough for feeding or watering livestock, in this case horses, because back in the day most people would arrive here by horse and carriage. Livestock would have to be fed and have to be watered, so that's what this would be for. But what's with the hound? What's with the dog? What does that mean? Because when we wander around, you're going to see dogs everywhere. You're going to see them on the coats of arms of the Earls of Shrewsbury, over fireplaces, on tops of buildings, in gardens. So what is it about dogs? Well, it's this. The Talbot family had got a bit of an in-joke, not between you and I, but between them. It was an inside funny joke that, you see, a Talbot is an extinct hunting dog. He's believed to be the ancestor of today's bloodhound. So it was an in-family joke that they called themselves the Talbots. But they adopted that name as their surname, so the Earls of Shrewsbury had the surname the Talbot family. And of course they adopted the hound in their coats of arms, which you will see on quite a few occasions as we wander through the garden. So that's the history of the Talbot hound. Now somebody on one of the previous trips counted about 30 hounds. If any of you wish to keep a count, then please feel free. I think the type, like I said, 30 is the last count. If anybody's got 40 or 50 hounds, then please let me know at the end of the tour. So we're going to go down now to the next iconic part, and that will be the Dutch garden, and then we'll briefly pause there, and then we'll go up to the orangery. It is a fascinating building to see, because today we'll be discussing not only conservation work and action, but restoration work, and then we'll even come across heritage lost. So this way to the Dutch garden.
I emailed them, yeah. They'll take consideration. But I did email them.
So welcome to the Dutch garden. It was designed by William Eames. So why has it got the name the Dutch garden? Well, because it's got Dutch horticultural influences, it takes the name the Dutch garden. Symmetrical in shape, as you can see. Beautiful classical floral arrangement. The roses are on the way back, but at the height of the summer they look simply beautiful. The lavender has still got that lovely smell. Of course, the plants are replaced throughout the season. Now, the reason why I've stopped here as well, not just to introduce you to the Dutch garden, but these 4 statues here, they're meant to represent the 4 recognised continents of the time. So, we've got Europe, Africa, America and Asia. Now, these 2 in particular are very interesting. This is America. So, notice the Native American headdress and also the Native American grass skirt. But what about the lizard on the arm? Well, the lizard could represent Central America, it could have a Mayan influence, or even South America with an Incan influence, or possibly even the southwestern United States, because of course there are lizards there too. Now this one's a lot more clear. The young man has got his foot on a tortoise, and what looks like a hunting horn is actually ivory. Is an elephant's tusk. So this clearly shows that this represents the continent of Africa. Now, if we all come over to the lion here, that majestic lion has the tale to tell, and that majestic lion is an imposter. Now this lion looks lovely, doesn't it? Looks like he's been there forever, you know, for quite some time. He's all majestic and regal. But as I said, he is an imposter. Well, why did I say that? Well, once there was a much larger lion that resided in that very spot. Now, the original one, was it destroyed? Was it lost? Was it stolen? No. A local mill owner in Leek purchased it for the people of Leek, and now it resides outside the Staffordshire Moorlands District Council headquarters in Leek, Staffordshire. Perhaps it's guarding the council employees, who knows, but it's there to this day. So purchased locally by a mill owner. We don't know how it ended up at the council offices, but there it resides. So this lion was put in the place. Now, it's a watch your step moment. We're going to go up to the orangery, and what will look like a ruin, you may have walked past and thought this is just a ruined building. There's also an interesting building with a tale to tell. If you know what to look for, it cries out to you, giving information. So this way please, and watch your step everyone. welcome to the orangery. It's also referred to as the quarry greenhouse. Now, as you can see, this has been preserved, but restoration is desperately needed on this building. But I want you to imagine a few things. So, of course, it will be more ornate. This is Hollington sandstone. Look at the lovely stonework, the buttressing at the top. The reason why I mention as well the buttering at the top is because it's going to be very similar to the Great Conservatory, which is a similar sort of building but grander. This was designed by Robert Abraham. It was built in 1824. So it was glass fronted. We've got two wonderful glass domes, cast iron with glass on the right and the left. Now, as you notice, the right one is gone. That's because a tree or a large branch fell on the right dome, pushing it beyond repair. Now, on the left, obviously, you can see all of the aluminum light cone at the top. When we go to the next slide, I'll explain the significance of the light cone. I just wanted you to all see. Now, this is, I was saying that some things just hit you in the face and provide lots of information. So, this symbol and this symbol at the bottom, there's two of the same right over here where I'm going, and they're a bit less worn. So what are they? They're called fleur de lis. It's a French word, and it means, in English, it means lily flower. Now, it's got a lot of meanings. In Christianity, these three petals are meant to represent the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's also meant to represent purity, virtue, and also particularly female virtue. And in the French royal family, pre-French Revolution, before the French Revolution began in 1789, it was the symbol of the French monarchy for hundreds of years. Now, why is this here? This is here really is a decorative design. It was very popular in the Victorian period. Obviously, in 1824, this predates the Victorian period, but it was popular in the 1820s, and of course, at the height of the Victorian period, a lot of buildings had a fleur de lis design. So we're going to go down to the next side, which is in a moment, the Grand Conservatory. Now, time hasn't always been kind to this building. History is about layers, and as I've explained, this was once the height of finery, or the quarry greenhouse, also orangery. The orangery was like its official name, and it's been a cafe, it's been a tea room, and unfortunately it's even become a toilet, a lavatory. Now it is protected now in the English Heritage Class 2. The only way is up, restoration. All the buildings that you're going to see today, and the gardens and the house itself, are Class 2, Grade 2, English Heritage listed and protected. The gardens that they're in are Grade 1, which makes these gardens exceptional to be a Class 1, Grade 1 garden, and that's exactly what the gardens are. So one day this hopefully will be restored to its former glory, but nothing worse can happen to it that hasn't already happened. Now, if everybody comes over here and looks at the monument at the back, does it remind you of anything? If I gave you a clue and said Salisbury Plains, Southern England? Stonehenge, that's right. It's not ancient, there's nothing ancient about this. This is what's called a garden folly. Garden follies were very popular in the 18th and 19th century. This one goes back to about 1830. Each stone is said to weigh around 9 tons, and basically it's a Stonehenge on top of 2 Stonehenges. So if you ever get the time today, you can go all the way around to the back and see it in its former glory. So we're going to go down the steps now to the Grand Conservatory. Pause briefly at the steps because there's some information I want to cascade to you to give out, and you'll actually have the chance to go in the end conservatory, and you'll be able to see where restoration work has been carried out. And this is a case of obviously restoration needs to be done. The end result, which is earlier addition to 1820, you're going to see restoration that has been completed, and it's a beautiful building.
So was this stone from Hollington Park?
It was.
That's why it was the quarry?
Yes,
Right.
yes. So the lady has asked, is this from, she's obviously familiar with Hollington.
Granddad from Alton.
Yeah, lovely. So this is Hollington sandstone. When we go down to the other, which I was going to mention as well anyway, it's called Hollington white sandstone. Now it doesn't look white to you and I, but it's because it's 200 years of wear and tear, which has made it go a brownie or a cream colour. But yes, all the stone, all the sandstone, Hollington, and locally sourced. So keep it in Staffordshire. So this way, please. What's your step, everyone?
It's not been recorded.
So you're just walking past it, aren't you? Just going on right. It's really nice to see.
Beyonce, oh hey green.
What room here? That's that building.
Would I say what's me on?
And as we go through the bushes and the green there's me.
So before we go to the Grand Conservatories, if you look ahead where the little cottage is, and we'll be discussing that later to the right, that woodland there is known as the Bavarian Woods. It's named after Bavaria in Germany. So we're going to go down the steps here, take a sharp left, just down the last few steps, and then I'll tell you all about the Grand Conservatories, and as I said, you'll be able to go in the end one. So this way, please, and please watch the steps. Welcome to the Grand Conservatories, also designed by Robert Abraham, such as the same as the Orangery building. This predates it to 1820, so it's several years before the Orangery. That was 1824, this is 1820. So, as I was saying to the lady, this is called Hollington white stone. This looks a bit more creamy, it's less dirty than the other stone. We've got cast iron, which was cast at the Britannia Foundry, just like the Karadzic Monument in 1829. So they used the same foundry to do the ironwork, the cast iron. Glass, as you can see, lots of glass panes, about 11,500 glass panes. Now, when the 15th Earl wanted it building, he had a bill for £13,000. That was in 1820. So today that equates to £1.1 million. Now in 2010, Alton Towers restored this. What you see is a building in its full restored glory. It cost Alton Towers £850,000 to restore these buildings. Now there's three conservatories, to use the correct term, the pavilions. So there's a colonnade, a walkway, which connects each of the buildings, each of the pavilions. The domes on the top are in the shape of a pine cone. The correct term is a finial. The gold gilding, and they're meant to be a nod to the Earl's Scottish links. Now the crown, if you see the crown right down in the bottom there, that's called a coronet. That's the crown of an earl. So it's not the crown of a reigning monarch or a member of the royal family, but the crown of an earl, the crown of the Earl of Shrewsbury. So we're going to walk down to the bottom. Right to the bottom is where you'll go in the Grand Conservatory. Now it's worth noting as well, I was on about restoration work that needed to be done or carried out. Well, Alton Towers in the 2014-18 year alone spent just over 1.9 million on restoration work. Now when you go in the chapel today and the great banqueting hall in the house, those are also 2 cases of restoration in action that have been fully restored. Now as you walk down here, and we'll take a slow walk, I want you to notice the vegetation at the side. Now both the 15th and the 16th Earl, his successor, would notice the vegetation, and there was lots of wonderful plants and flowers, and there's a heated pool in the middle one which we've got in today, and they would recognise that. But these were also used for growing fruit, in particularly the humble banana, which in their day was quite exotic. And I have a story regarding these bananas. Now it's said that the first bananas in England were grown in these very conservatories, and the story goes on that the Earl of Shrewsbury wanted to make a gift of some bananas to the Duke of Devonshire at Chatsworth House, and he sent her some bananas with instructions of how to eat the bananas. One would hope that he would say peel first before eating. That's just my guess. Well, anyway, the Duke has heard the story and he thinks it's absolute nonsense, rubbish. He said, I grew the first bananas, not the Earl of Shrewsbury. So who do you believe, the Earl or the Duke? I'll leave that one to you. So we're going to make our way down to the conservatory at the end. So have a look to your left, have your cameras ready if you want to quickly dash up to the window and take a photograph of the middle conservatory. Got some wonderful plants in there, ferns, a lovely pool with water lilies. It really is lovely inside, and just look up at the crown and the wonderful craftsmanship. A lot of work has gone into this, and a lot of work has gone into the restoration process for this building. As I mentioned to you all, the walkway connects, there's several walkways which connect each the buildings, and this is like restoration and action as well. So they did the work on the roof. You can see a pattern of shadow when the elements were getting in. The cast iron was obviously going rusty, and it was dripping onto the floor below. But also, as I say, buildings can tell a story. We've got the 2 marks here, which are clearly scaffolding, because we need scaffolding to get to the roof here and restore all the cast iron, because the cast iron had to be restored, glass had to be restored, glass panes, and quite a long time was spent in doing this. Now, unlike the orangery, that time hasn't always been too kind with, time has been much kinder to this. Thank goodness it has never been a lavatory at any point in its history. It's also been a tea room and a cafe, just like the other building. And during the terrible dark days of COVID, this was also used as a mini garden centre. So it has served quite a few purposes, and as you may see, they made a good job of the restoration work, and it really is beautiful. Now we're going to just go literally a hop, skip and a jump over to the summer house there. We're going to go then to the grotto, a short stop, and then you're going to experience the height of 19th century decadence. This way, please. So this is called the summer house. It's also called the temple. Now I think it's more temple-like than summer house. Nevertheless, her ladyship loved this spot on a summer's day. She loved to apparently stand here. It was recorded. Could look across at the house and be in the shade. Now originally there were stained glass windows in the bars here. Now we've just got bars and got a wonderful view of the yew arches. We're going to walk along there in a moment. So this was designed by Joseph Island, and it's got a Greek influence, so that's why it looks like a Greek temple. Now we're going to go down the steps in a moment. There's some iron railings on the side, so hold on to the railings. We're just going to briefly pause at the grotto, and then you're going to get that decadent feel. So this way, please. So welcome to the grotto. Looks quite fairy tale-like, doesn't it? Well, what's this? This is limestone, and it's called tufa limestone. It's actually imported from Italy. So what exactly is tufa limestone? Well, it's limestone which is formed when carbonate minerals precipitate out of water in unheated rivers or lakes. And it's got a bit of an Italian feel to it, a bit of Italian design, which is just as well because both the Earl's daughters were married to Italian princes. Not anyone, but Italian princes. Now that leads us to decadence. We're going to be walking down those archways in a moment, and notice the scallop wall behind you on the left. That's a continuation, so you're going to feel even more enclosed now. But if you look at the yew arches, and we'll be walking down there. In the 19th century, these were considered the height of decadence. So if you've got a couple of arches, lovely, fantastic. If you've got 4 or 5, congratulations, you're doing very well. But if you've got 9, which these number up to 9, that is the height of decadence. That is like you having a Maserati sports car today. You were showing off your garden, showing off your yew tree, your yew arches, and your guests are going to see this. When we get to the other end, you'll see where the great gate, golden gate, stood, and guests would go through the gate and walk under the processional arches. Now, before we start, as we walk down the right, you're going to see some statues in the garden, and there's one statue in particular that always gets me. Now, perhaps I've done too many tours. I've done many tours since July. But there's this one statue in particular which I want you to all look at on your right when we go down there, and that is a young man, looks like a cherub, wrestling with a goat. Now the goat's expression is most peeved. The young man is smiling, the goat is not. And that always strikes me. I always look at the goat, and the goat's expression, of course, never changes. So I want you to have a good look at the goat. Now as we go down there as well, as we reach the bottom, we're going to go to a first of our iconic fountains, and it's going to be a drum roll moment. You might be overwhelmed, you might be underwhelmed, so it might be cameras ready, it might be cameras closed, but you're going to be surprised. The fountains are here all gravity powered. We've got lots and lots of water. I'm going to explain later where the water comes from. Obviously, you know about the lakes, that they're all man-made. They're not natural lakes and water collects there. But where does the water come from in the first place? You will find out that in a bit later. So, drum roll moment for the fountain. So, follow me to the height of decadence. As I said, scallop wall to the left.
Yeah.
Said it was going to be a drum roll moment, and here we have it, our poor little shell fountain. You may have walked in these gardens for years and never even noticed the shell fountain. Smallest fountain in the gardens, but very, very much loved. Now, I was on about the height of decadence coming through the archway. So here we have two big golden gates. We've got the Hills of Shrewsbury lions on the top, so as well as having Talbot hounds at the bottom, they've also got prancing lions on the coat of arms. Notice the lions have got a crown on the top as well, a coronet, the crown of an earl, as I mentioned earlier. So guests will come through here and then through the archway to admire the gardens. Now, this is going to be another watch your step moment, because the appointment with the bear is pretty imminent. We're going to go up to the screw fountain first. There are several lots of steps, some tree roots coming up, so here's a watch your step moment. So follow me, please. before we had the iconic corkscrew ride, we had the screw fountain. It's also known as the candlestick fountain and the siren fountain. Don't forget that all the fountains here are gravity powered. Some days there'll be no water coming cascading down the fountain. Other days, like today, is in the height of its glory. It was designed by Thomas Bradley in the 1800s. It's fed by two ponds located north of the fountain. So the water will come from the pond to the north, make the way down the valley. And a bit, of course, as I said, I'll explain the source of the water and also the ancient people who lived in this area, because the area has a connection, it shares a connection. Now, it's a lovely photo stop to quickly take a photo. We're going to cross over a bit of a gap in the water. Somebody will be the other side to help you across. So watch your step, don't worry, one of my colleagues will be there. And then we've got that appointment with the bear. So this way, please.
Can I sit back in the garden? It's been a while. No, just we'll go round and look like that. In a bit. Well, I mean, I guess it depends if you want to go down and up or round.
So welcome to the Bear Cave. So, natural rock with a man-made cave carved in there. Now everybody goes to visit the rides today and go on the rides. Now in the 1850s, guests used to come and see a large black bear that used to reside in there. There was a cage on the front and the bear was enclosed there. Now one day, 1857 to be precise, a lady maybe got too close to the bear or tried to pet the bear, and that's where the problem arose. Now the lady could have been from nearby Cheadle, Staffordshire. Well, why do I say this? Simply because a report came to Alton Towers from a doctor, a surgeon no less, from Cheadle, and the lady's name was a Mrs. Tompkinson. And Mrs. Tompkinson, he reported, had her hand badly mauled, which seems to suggest if the gentleman was a surgeon that it could have even been an amputation case. There's a sting in the tail to this though. A few months later, another piece of correspondence came to Alton Towers. This time it was a bill. It was from a local taxidermist for one large stuffed black bear. And the bear was kept in the great house in Alton Towers for quite a few years to come, and eventually it was sold. Where is it now? Where does it reside now? We don't know. But somewhere out there in this country, at a stately home or a private house or a museum, resides one stuffed black bear. Now we're going to go up to the Gothic Prospect Tower in a moment, but before we go up there, the pool that you see at the side is called Lily Pad Lake. It takes its name because of all the water lilies on the top. It's home to ducks, crayfish inside, and there's lots and lots of carp as well. It's one of the many ponds that provide water for the fountains, which, as I said several times, are all gravity powered. So we're going to go up to the Prospect Tower. It's also referred as the Gothic Prospect Tower, and making a brief stop there because there are also some other interesting parts of the tower I want to point out to you. And also from the back there is going to be a lovely view which we'll get to in due course. So just watch your step here, please.
Yeah, I know, it's like yeah, no, it's really good. It's sort of nice to, because the amount of times obviously I've been here and you also just come for the rides, so to speak, walk through the gardens. It's just nice to actually understand a bit of the history. Yeah. He's doing nice. I was going to say, he's going to have a sore voice by the end of it today.
Welcome everyone to the Prospect Tower, also referred to as the Gothic Prospect Tower. So it was built in 1824. Robert Abraham again, and Charles Talbot the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury co-designed it. It's 11.4 metres high. It's an observation tower, octagonal at the top. It's got a finial on the top, fleur-de-lis finial on the very top. Cast iron, you can see the couple of levels with the cast iron railings. Recent books seem to suggest that once again the cast iron was cast at the Britannia Foundry near Derby, and it's about the same time frame as the other buildings. Now, it's an observational tower, and this area here that it's on, it's called Thompson's Rock. Now, what's the observational tower doing here? Because it was a great favourite to the Earl. Well, when you look across the gardens, and we'll be going around the back in a moment, you're looking at a south-southwesterly direction. Now today you can see that the gardens are very well grown. There's lots of trees, shrubs, lots and lots of growth. But when this was built in the 1820s, 1824, obviously it'd be a clearer view. So why has it got the name Prospect Tower? Well, apparently the Earl would stand at the back, would look over his gardens and over at the house, and he would be reviewing his prospects, hence the name Prospect Tower. Now, if you just wander around here at the back and have a look at the top as we go round to the back, this is also a restored site. £350,000 it cost to restore this tower. Come round here, got a wonderful view on the back, and also that cottage I mentioned earlier. We've got
a little view on the back.
So we've got wonderful views across the valley, and the little cottage we saw earlier is called Swiss Cottage. It was built in 1835 and it acquired the nickname of Harper's Cottage. So why Harper's Cottage? Well, the Earl employed a Welsh harpist named Edward Jarvis who used to reside there for some time, and he played Welsh folk music on his harp, and the music had wafted across the valley. And it really is one of the best views across the valley. If you get a chance today, you can go down to the viewpoint there and look across here. Now, the great irony of it all was that Edward Jarvis couldn't appreciate the beauty of this valley because Edward Jarvis was blind. So that's why it acquired the name of Harper's Cottage, because of the Welsh harpist that was resided there. Now, in later years, this cottage was a tea room. If any of you have ever been to Betty's Tea Room in Harrogate or in York itself, you've had a wonderful afternoon tea with fine 5-star service. This was the same. silver service. You could sit inside or on the patio. Wonderful views across the valley. Now obviously doing afternoon teas, maybe the demand was not there, but hopefully, just hopefully, that one day it'll be back to its former glory, serving afternoon teas, and you can have wonderful views across the valley. Now, I mentioned heritage restored, heritage preserved. Well, you're going to come face to face in a moment down those very steps with heritage lost. So just watch your step as we go down to the bottom, and we'll briefly pause at the bottom of the steps. Go this way, please. Now I know what you're all thinking, I can see you're all looking at why on earth has he stopped here by a pile of stones with a tree on top. I know that's what you're thinking, and I would think the same. Well, this is a case of heritage lost some time ago, in fact. Believe it or not, this was once site of an Indian temple, and it had got serpent snakes with ivory teeth and jewels for eyes. Some time ago, because obviously this tree's taken root and grown on the top, we lost the temple. All that remains are a pile of stones. Some of the stones have got marks on them which are actually meant to be scales of the snake, scales of the serpent. So this is obviously heritage lost. It can never be restored, never be rebuilt, lost forever. Now we're going to go past the front of the bear cave. If you look to your right, you'll see a little metal bracket at the front. That was where the gates of to keep the bear in the cave were fixed to the cave. So you'll see the little metal brackets. We're going to go down, descend to another level. All the time we're getting a bit lower down into the valley. So the next area we'll be going to is called Le Refuge. So this way, please. We'll be doubling back some of the way we've come, but this is a watch your step moment, as you can see, uneven steps in the tree.
just wondering if she's going to fall off.
Welcome everyone, I'm glad you all survived the bear. Now, we're down another level, and before we go down yet another level, welcome to the refuge. What the refuge is, it's a hothouse or a bathhouse. Now, behind the pillows, unfortunately we can't go in there, I've never even been in there, there's a changing room, and there are records that show that a ladyship could get changed in the changing room there, and jump into this plunge pool here, obviously to be filled with cold water. And this area dates back to about 1819. Now the statue is of the god Triton. Now in ancient Greek mythology, Triton was the son of the sea god Poseidon. So, hothouse, bathhouse, not a lot has changed since the time of the Romans or before. Over 2,000 years ago, we still have hothouses, saunas, and we still have cold plunge pools. This is no different. Now we're going to go down to the next level, and these young ladies here are the Muses, and you're going to find out all about the Muses on the next epic stop. And to use a well-worn phrase, watch your step.
It's like the 17 hours. Just like the steps.
This is one of my favourite buildings in the garden. So, a loggia, it's an Italian word, it means lodge, and muses, it means amusements. So we've got 9 muses, and they're meant to represent the arts and collectively the arts and science of mankind. They are the daughters of Zeus, who in Greek mythology was the king of the gods. So we've got 9 muses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ned, I said 9. I distinctly said 9. Well, one of them, one in the middle, is not that is Apollo. Apollo is their half brother, and Apollo is the purifier of evil and guardian of the valleys, which obviously here is very apt, being in a valley. Apollo looks less weathered than his half sisters as well, because Apollo is carved from marble. The muses are actually carved from sandstone. They're about 90 centimetres in height, and they were restored and placed here in the 1990s. Now, I've come across a photograph dated 1961 which shows the muses were actually placed on the scallop wall near the Karaji monument where we started the tour, and they were all placed along the top. So they've been restored and placed back where they should be. Now, the muses' amusement. So they're meant to represent some of the following: tragedy, dancing, epic poetry, singing, astronomy, history, hymns, pantomime, lyrical poetry, romantic poetry and comedy. Well, those muses sure like the poetry. Now, this colonnade, as you can see, it's an open passageway with a roof. It's not a man-made roof, it's a natural roof. Ivy has deliberately been made to trail over the top to create a natural roof. And obviously, as you can see, both the front and the sides are open to the elements. So we're going to make our way down next to this humble bandstand at the bottom, where, after I've mentioned the bandstand, we'll be discussing that water source that I've been promising you for goodness knows how long, and also about the ancient people who lived in this valley. So what's the step, everyone? Welcome to the bandstand. As we've discussed earlier, you've seen buildings dated 1820, 1824, 1830. This is a late addition to the garden, significantly later, 1928 to be precise. Well, we used to have live music here and brass bands, and we had live music apparently until the 1990s. Why did the music stop? Why did it cease? Once again, maybe like the Swiss cottage, that times change. People don't always want to listen to brass bands or any kind of bands in the gardens, but it would be very beautiful to think of you having a picnic and listening to music. If any of you have been to the country park in Buxton, they have a brass band every Sunday, and it sounds lovely to hear the bands playing and the music cascading across the valley. Maybe it will come back again into live bands at some point, but however, do not expect Oasis to ever play here, because it will not happen. Oasis will not perform here. Now, one day, of course, we will get brass bands and music. Well, that'll be another day. Now, I mentioned about the water source, the original water source. So, you know, the water gathers in the pools. You know, the pools are cascading down to the bottom of the valley here. But where does it all begin? Well, just outside Alton Towers, there's a high series of hills called the Weaver Hills, which, if you're local, you may be familiar with the Weaver Hills. And there's a series of springs up in the Weavers. That's where the water comes from, a series of springs, and it cascades down the valley into the ponds, waterfalls, all the way down to here. But what about ancient people as well? Well, ancient people have occupied the Weaver Hills for millennia. In fact, in the late Neolithic and late Iron Age, the ancient people buried the dead in burial mounds called barrows on those very hills. There's a series of burial mounds or barrows which are unexcavated in the Register of English Archaeology. It's registered that they will never be excavated. They are in pristine condition. You can visit the Weavers, you can climb to the top of the trig point. There's even a bench by the burial mounds where you can sit and take in the views, fantastic views. It's nearly killed me, but I have walked to the top on about 4 occasions, and there's a lovely ice cream spot below as well, which I highly recommend. Now, the Romans. This area was occupied by an ancient tribe. Now, we need to go back a little bit further. So, in the Alton Towers estate to this day, there are the remains of an Iron Age hill fort dated about 1000 BC. And hill forts were built on a high point, and the high point here was called Bunbury Hill. And you could see enemy tribes approaching from a distance. Even when the Romans approached, you could see. There's still remains of this Iron Age hill fort within the Alton Towers estate. Now, the year was 43 AD, during the reign of the Emperor Claudius. 4 imperial Roman legions and a large number of auxiliary troops landed on the coast of southern England, about 40,000 men in all. By 47 AD, they'd reached the neighbouring county of Shropshire, next to Staffordshire, one of the neighbouring counties. They met a local tribe at a large hill which you may know or heard of called the Wrekin. There was a brief clash. The Romans were victorious. They burnt the hill fort down to the ground. The local tribe quickly adapted to the Roman way of life. Why have I mentioned this tribe? Well, the tribe were called the Cornovi. I mean, the Romans called them the people of the horn. Now, the reason why I mention this is because although the Cornovi tribe was central in Shropshire, they also had lands in Cheshire and Staffordshire, particularly North Staffordshire here. So this was Cornovi tribal land. What do we know about the Cornovi? Only what the Romans wished to tell us. They didn't issue coins before the Romans arrived. We don't know the names of the kings. We don't know the names of the chiefs. We only know the boundaries of their land because of the more powerful tribes that surrounded them. So that was the Cornovi tribe. They were all a farming tribe, and also they dealt in livestock and salt. If they considered themselves warlike, obviously the Romans made short shrift of that. Now, on to the Romans. 48 AD, the 14th Legion came through this area, or units from the 14th called cohorts. How do we know the Romans came here? There are coins found on the ridges near here, and just outside Alton Towers, less than a mile away, were found 9 Roman coins. Also, some 20 years later or so, in 69 AD, the Romans built a fort near the town of modern-day town of Roster, manned it with a force of auxiliary cavalry, and that was to guard the crossings of the River Dove and the River Churney, the same Churney River which flows through this valley. So that was the Romans. We're going to make our way down to the other great iconic monument, which is probably my favourite, the Great Chinese Pagoda. And then as we reach the bottom, we're going to actually go forward in history, or back in our case, but forward from the Roman time to a battle fought in these very gardens at the bottom over 1,300 years ago. As we go down to the fountain at the bottom, everybody look to the left, you'll see a waterfall with the water cascading. So don't forget, all the time it's making its way down from the valley, and that original source is the Weaver Hills. Look to the left, everyone, you can see the waterfall. It really is cascading down the valley today. So welcome to the Great Pagoda. Official name is the Chinese Bell Tower. 44 feet high, and it's capable of shooting water up to 70 feet in the sky. It's, as you can see, it's 3 stories. Originally it was envisaged to be 6 stories. It was designed and built in 1832 again by Robert Abraham. It's had a restoration work carried out on the cast iron, and the colours are the original colours of the Great Pagoda as when it was first built. Now it's based on a Chinese pagoda in Canton, China, called the Taiho Pagoda. The modern day of Canton is Guangzhou in China. Now this area here, this lake, is called Dolphin Lake. Now of course we never had any dolphins in this lake. What it refers to is a fountain that was once in this lake. The photographs dated early 1870s to early 1930s showing the fountain in this very spot here, but of course the fountain is long gone and only the lake remains. So that is the Great Pagoda. Now, a battle was fought in this very area over 1,300 years ago. So I want you to use your imagination. There's no pagoda, no lakes. Don't forget the man-made, no walls, no terraces, no trees, no shrubs, nothing of beauty, just a barren valley. Well, the Romans left Britain. We've got to start when the Romans left. So the Romans left Britain. They call this Britannia, the province of Britannia. They left in 410 AD. The last imperial legion, last administrator left. After that period, we were invaded by a series of invaders, Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, and we entered an area which at school you may have been heard as taught that they were called the Dark Ages, now often referred to as the early medieval period. So into this power vacuum stepped 2 kings. There was no centralised monarchy, but a series of kings ruling different parts of the country, or powerful warlords. We had 2 Saxon kings in our story here. King Ceolred, King of Mercia, and King Ina, King of Wessex. Now the year was 700 AD, and King Ceolred came here to Alton, and he built a fortress on the top of the hill where Alton Towers House stands today. 16 years later, 716 AD, King Ina marshalled his forces and came here to try and wrestle the land away from King Ceolred. He laid siege to the fortress without success. Both sides marshalled the forces together, and the resulting battle was so bloody, so fierce, hand to hand, man on man, swords, axes, spears, and the loss of life so great that this area to this very day, and even on maps, is called Slain Hollow. The loss of life was so great. And we don't know the exact date of the battle, only the year, but who won? No one. The battle was inconclusive. Now, if King Ceolred even dared to whisper that it was a victory because he held on to his fortress, it was a pirate victory because he died the same year. Well, what happened to him? Was he murdered? Was he killed in battle? Was it a coup? No, according to a St. Boniface, he attended a banquet, collapsed into a frenzy and started, quote, jabbering with demons and cursing the priests of God, and he just died. Well, what about King Ina? Well, King Ina, he just decided to give his kingdom up. He and his wife went over to Rome in Italy, spent the rest of their days there and died there. Well, why did he give his kingdom up? Simple. He simply said, I thought my kingdom should be ruled by a younger man. And that's exactly what happened. And that is the tale of the 2 Saxon kings, Ceolred of Mercia and King Ina of Wessex. Now, as we walk along here, we're going to stop at the midpoint, because then once I've got my breath back, I'll tell you who came next, because they play an important part in the story of Alton, and also, of course, they have a connection to Alton Towers. So this way, please.
I'll put everything in. Hey? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's quite fascinating, isn't it? They used to bring those days, didn't they? Yeah. I was going to say, I thought they used to. Yeah, well, wouldn't be above the tree like, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's none of that back then.
Yeah. Normally we do stop at the cave the other side, but I think because we're on a little bit behind. We're not that.
Everybody is familiar with the year 1066 at school, the Battle of Hastings. William the Conqueror came over here, became William the First of England, known to history as William the Conqueror. His official title in Normandy was William of Normandy. Now, after the conquest, there was a family of Norman knights who came over to here, to Alton. And most confusingly, three of them all had the same name. There was a Bertram de Verdun the First, Second and Third. Now, Bertram de Verdun the Third had the title of Lord of Alton, and he built a castle just outside Alton Towers here. Now, when you come into the towers, or leaving the towers, you might have seen a big Gothic-style castle on the top of the hill. That is the site of the Norman castle. It was built around 1170, 1175, but the castle that you see today, the big house, is actually Victorian. It was built in 1847. Now, the 16th Earl of Shrewsbury commissioned Augustus Pugin, his architect, to build that on the hill. So where is the original Norman castle? The original Norman castle was destroyed during the Civil War. It was badly damaged during the Civil War, and upon orders of Parliament, the castle was to be slighted. It was a term which means destroyed, rendered useless. All that remains today of the old original castle is the Norman Grade 1 listed. Now, I was on about the de Verdun's 1, 2, 3, Bertram de Verdun III built the Norman castle. Also, if any of you are local or been around here, Croxton Abbey was built by his design. He paid for the monks to come over to pray for his souls of his family, his ancestors and the ones to come. Croxton is just a few miles away from here. It's free to visit, English heritage protected, well worth visiting. So I mentioned that, so what on earth have the de Verduns got to do with Alton Towers other than Alton? Well, it's simple. The de Verduns and then later the de Furnival's, through marriage, became connected to the Talbot family. So the de Verduns are connected to the Talbot family by marriage. When we go into the Great Hall, I'm going to point out the great beautiful stained glass windows of the Talbots, and at the side you may notice it will say de Verdun. It'll actually say Verdun on the stained glass window, but it should be de Verdun, and they obviously married and were connected to the Talbot family. So we're going to go on to the next iconic viewpoint. My voice should come back. I really do wish I got my headset, and I bet you do too. When we get to the iconic next point, we'll be discussing biodiversity.
Okay.
shape of the garden, hence the heart shape. So the next stop as we carry on here, not very far to go, is the Lambeth Bridge.
I like how windy it is as well.
So this is called the Lambeth Bridge. It's based on it's a replica of the Lambeth Bridge in London. It's cast iron, and this is actually called the canal. Now, it's nothing like any canal that you or I envisage. It's basically just a source of water, a waterway. To the right, you can see the waterfall at the top, which cascades down the valley, goes down underneath the bridge, and this, of course, will be yet another source of water to provide water for all those gravity powered fountains. Now, I was on about biodiversity, and when I showed you the back of the Prospect Tower, I mentioned that the foliage was not as thick and the trees were not as thick. Now, late thinking now is that certain areas of gardens should be slightly wild or have wild places to encourage wildlife habitat. This is no different. As you can see, this area is reasonably wild. So we've got a rich diversity of wildlife, mammals, foxes, badgers, rabbits, squirrels, all manner of birds, including birds of prey such as buzzards. We've got herons and pheasants as well. All these animals consider this home. They're protected because we're in a conservation area. They will not be harmed. This is their home for until the end of their days. Also, lots of amphibians, frogs, newts, toads, and we've got crayfish in the waters as well. Now, plants as well. Unfortunately, we have a guest which is not always welcome. This plant here is called Himalayan balsam. It's got beautiful flowers, beautiful little pink flowers, and it's a bit of an invasive species. Actually, it shouldn't be here. It was brought over by Victorian plant collectors from 1839 onwards to beautify gardens and stately homes such as this. Well, it spreads, and it spreads too quickly. It loves waterways, as you can see here. It's now a criminal offence to spread the seeds or plant Himalayan balsam in any of the areas under the Countryside Act of 1981. So that shouldn't happen. In the last 50 years, it has spread all over the country, particularly here, and in the Churnip Valley it has got everywhere. It doesn't take much for the seeds to spread. The reason why I mention this as well are the gardeners are doing their best to remove these. At the end of the season, they will clear as much of the channel away as possible, but unfortunately, bet your bottom dollar it will return with a vengeance in another season. So that is Himalayan balsam. Now we have all got a breather. We're going to turn left and go up the steps we'll meet up at the Karadzic Monument, and then the next part of the tour will be the house itself. So this way, I want you all to have your energy at the ready. You've got a bit of an incline, but I promise you, you haven't got too many steps after that. In fact, the house will be literally a walk in the park. This way, please. Use the iconic phrase, watch your steps.
No offense, but they look like the type. Ah.
Now they're going to run enough height. I just killed the flower. I know. Oh, they got away quick, innit? There they are. What? Share the love, innit? So we've just finished the gardens part of the tour, and that was very interesting, very enjoyable. A lot of walking involved, but very enjoyable, and something that can be enjoyed by all ages. You know, there's somebody here that's putting us lot to shame walking round. It's brilliant. Really enjoyed it so far. Turn it off for a little bit.
I'm glad to see that you all made it. I don't know about you, but her ladyship must have been extremely fit to walk up and down these steps and along the paths. We're going to go along to the Alton Towers house in a minute. And when I mentioned about the 15,000 trees recorded, this is a case in point, a lovely monkey puzzle tree. But if you notice, it's got a little clip with a serial number on an AT, which obviously stands for Alton Towers. So we're going to walk across part of the Ladyship's Walk, or the Dahlia Walk, come outside Alton Towers. There'll be a brief introduction to the house, and then I'll be taking you around the various sections of the house. So this way, please.
How long was left? 37 minutes. There's 37 minutes left. Shall I turn it off for a little bit? Mind you saying that, I could always go over to the phone, couldn't I? If it comes to it.
So welcome everyone. The 15th Earl decided to build bigger and better because it just wasn't cost effective to do up Alberton Lodge. So we called in a number of architects such as Thomas Allison, William Hollins and Thomas Hopper, and he decided to give it a new name, and from 1811 it became Alton Abbey. Not Alton Towers, Alton Abbey. It wasn't named after Croxton Abbey, which I mentioned the Diverdens. Purely it was called Alton Abbey because it had a grander name. So when the 15th Earl died and his nephew took over, the 16th Earl, he built even more, bigger and better. And if you want that wow factor in your house, who are you going to call? Well, he called in Augustus Welby Northmore Pugin, probably the greatest architect and designer of the 19th century. Designed the Palace of Westminster in London, commonly referred to as the Houses of Parliament, and also St Giles Roman Catholic Church in Cheadle, Staffordshire, near to Alton. Pugin arrived here in around 1837. So why did he choose Pugin? He chose Pugin because he was a Roman Catholic, and the 16th Earl was a devout Roman Catholic. Pugin believed that through Christian Gothic architecture he could bring the country back into the Roman Catholic faith. Because after all, until Henry VIII made himself head of the Church of England in the 1530s, we were a Catholic country. So Pugin set to work and this house acquired a new name, and that name was Alton Towers. So we're going to go past the front of the Alton Towers and stop in a ladyship's garden before we explore the eastern part of the house. Now as we walk to the left, I want you to look to the right and look over the moat. It's called a foss. A foss is a dry moat. It's a moat without water. And also, if you look at the drawbridge over the moat, you might wonder, well, what's that all for? Well, it was for the locals in Alton to attend here for Sunday service. Well, what was that all about? Well, you're going to find out. So this way, please. So look to your right, look at the moat, look at the drawbridge. I will
you. I'm not losing another one. Because. Thank you, well, guys. Appreciate that.
So your accommodation includes? Hayley!
Welcome to Alton Towers and welcome specifically to the Ladyship's Garden. Notice how quiet it is once we're in here. So, the gardens are open all year round. When you're visiting the park, going on the rides, of course, you can feel free to wander around the gardens. We'll be going in the conservatory over there, up on the roof in the chapel here where the tour will conclude, and of course the great banqueting hall with the wonderful Fujian stained glass windows. So we're going to first look at the eastern part of the house. So we'll just go up these steps. Earl's daughters were married to Italian princes, and that was the Gloria Italian Princes of Parma. Just below, which looks very church-like, was the site of the original chapel. Now, of course, they're just empty shells. The side here, with the 4 stories, are where the servants were quartered. You can still see some glass in some of the windows, and that's next to the new chapel. Now, the Earl John, the 16th Earl, was a very popular man to work for. The servants loved working here, so much so that they called him the Good Earl John, and people basically worked here till the day they died. They even developed their own dialect, the servants, that nobody else could understand, only the people who worked here at Alton Towers. Now, this is the drawbridge that had come over, this is the other side. So why did the locals come to service in the chapel here, which you'll be going in later? Well, Alton didn't have a Roman Catholic church until 1842. So the locals would come here and worship with the Talbot family on a Sunday until they had the Roman Catholic church built. So we're going to walk around here. You're going to have a wonderful view of the stained glass windows at the side. And then we're going to walk through the garden and then actually into the conservatory itself. This way. Stained glass windows were designed in the 1980s by a Whig College student called Claire Venables from the art department. So what are 1980s stained glass windows, which were placed there in the 1990s, doing there? Well, you're going to find out a bit later what happened to the original stained glass windows. So we're going to walk down the garden to the conservatory, because we've got an appointment with a 13-year-old royal princess who visited here. Now, what are we looking at the garden? gardens, they represent the 4 seasons of the year, very popular with the ladyship. Now, for you ride fans, that is where the head line is. Now, the entrance there is also an important part to play in the story of the house, because that was where the great armoury and portrait gallery was. So it started with the armoury, worked the way down, into the portrait gallery, into the octagonal building, and there were more wonderful works of art. There was fantastic paintings which you're going to hear about in the conservatory, and also as much arms and armour and guns that you could field an army in the field. So we're going to walk down, and I mentioned the house. If you go down the steps, you're going to see 2 sets of Talbot House, proudly there, and also there are 2 just outside the conservatory. So follow me to the conservatory. Notice the hand.
Anyone yet?
Yeah.
Wow, the ghosts in here.
So this is the conservatory. So guests would come down through the armoury, the gallery, and there's a fake wall there, so they come through the wall and down here into the conservatory. So what have we got? To the right, we've got the Star Garden, because of the Star Fountain. The Earl's private apartments there to the right, and then to the right of the fountain where I'm pointing, that was the music room. And of course, to the left, we've just come through the ladyship's garden. Now, this is what you call fading grandeur. It's, seen better days. And I want you to imagine it was all beautifully decorated. So we've got original Minton tiles there. And they were designed by Puget himself on a railway trip up to Stoke-on-Trent. And there'll be all Minton tiles on the floor, and imagine crystal cut chandeliers. There was songbirds and gilded cages, beautiful ornaments, beautiful flowers, beautiful plants. And I said we had a guest here, a 13-year-old princess. Her name was Victoria, later Queen Victoria, the same queen who gave the name to an age of empire and industrialisation. Now, Queen Victoria died at the age of 81 on the Isle of Wight in January 1901. And throughout her life, she kept a daily record, a diary of her day's events. And this time, when she was here as a 13-year-old in 1832, it was no different. She kept a diary entry. And the diary entry reads as follows: October 1832. At 1 we arrived at Alton Towers, the seat of Lord Shrewsbury. This is an extraordinary house. On arriving, one goes into a sort of gallery filled with armour, guns, swords, pistols, models, flags, etc., etc. Then enter a conservatory with birds. We lunched there, and the luncheon was served on splendid gold plate. At 2:30 we left. Can you imagine that? Queen Victoria having lunch here in this very room where we're standing today in October 1832. Now, I said faded grandeur. This house, you've heard all about the gardens. This house is a tale to tell on a rise and fall of the house. You've heard about the rise, you've heard about Pugin and all the beautiful work that's carried out. What about the fall? Well, the Earl, the 16th Earl, died in 1852. And some years later, there was a battle over the earldom. Now, they wanted the title of Earl, the house, the grounds, the gardens. That's what they wanted. All the beautiful things in the galleries were to be sold. They were just contents. And there was a massive legal battle. Money needed to be raised. So what do? We sell the contents. Every single, I've actually seen the inventory, every single room, so 219 pages, every single room had something to sell. Even the Doria Italian printing department had something to sell. I had a look in the art gallery there. 700 paintings were sold. Some were Caravaggios, some were Rubens, worth millions in today's money. And then also, I had a look at the inventory as a whole. And Monday, 6th of July 1857, and for 29 consecutive days after that, they sold things out of Alton Towers. Over 4,000 items were sold. As I said, 700 paintings, beautiful sculptures, gone. So that was the contents. Now, what about the house? Well, in the house, it hasn't always been like this. From about 1896 onwards, it started to slowly deteriorate, and you need money to keep a house like this going. And the money just wasn't there. By the 1920s, 1924, the Earls had left here, and a group of local businessmen brought, saying they sold off some of the things. And then we came to the dark days of the Second World War, and the War Office requisitioned this as an officer cadet training school during the war, the house and the grounds. Now, the common story goes that the army trashed this place. Let them loose, the army trashed you. Well, that's a nonsense. The army found out that there were certain rooms that they couldn't use, that they were too dangerous, too dilapidated, and they were not fit for purpose, they could not use them. The real damage occurred in the early 1950s when this area was like asset stripped. So, what happened? First, the lead from the roof was sold. You sell the lead off the roof, the elements get in, the floors rot, the floors fall through. You've got empty shelves, empty buildings, empty rooms. It was all dilapidated. Anything that could be sold off, fixtures and fitting wise. That's a rather lovely fireplace. There's 189 fireplaces scattered through Alton Towers. I'll have one of those. Help yourself, sir. Pay the price, off it goes. Bricks, local Alton people said that bricks were taken away. Even lovely doors. What's a lovely door? Would you like it in your house? Yeah, go ahead. Off it went. So lots and lots of fixtures and fittings went. The chapel, as you'll find out later, didn't survive either, but the house itself, bit by bit, became the shell that we see today. So Queen Victoria will be not amused. And if you had wondered as well, why was Queen Victoria here? She was on a tour of the Midlands, the great stately homes of the Midlands. She actually spent a couple of days at at Sugar Hall near Stafford, and this was one of her stops on a tour of the Midlands. Now we're going to go into the drawing room next. Now I need to warn you, I need to give you a warning that people have long gone from here. We have still got things living here, and we've got pigeons, Percy Pigeon, and Percy Pigeon has got friends, and friends that create poo. So we've got pigeon poo that you're going to have to dodge on the floor. We are doing our best to clear that house. Also, there's a scare maze going on there. You'll see things which are obviously nothing to do with the house, purely to do with the scare maze attraction for Scarefest. They might not be there in future years, but they're there today. Apologies, because this house has been used for storage for different rides over the years. We're going to go into the great drawing room. It's called the tea room, and you'll see it's because of the shape of the room you like to tea, not because drinks were served there, although they probably were. So we're just going to go into the tea room, briefly pause, and then you're going into one of the most famous rooms in the Towers, the great banqueting hall, and then has one of the most important and famous windows in the country. So this is the grand drawing room. So it'll be a lot lighter. As you can see, the windows are all boarded up, so lots and lots of beautiful light. In the 1920s, the local businessmen, bear in mind the Earls of Shrewsbury had gone and turned these into local tea rooms, and there was lots and lots of light. But back in the Victorian period, guests would be entertained here. The ladies would retire here, maybe sing, needlework, music. The gentlemen would go in there to play billiards and maybe smoke a fine cigar. When I mentioned asset stripping as well, you can see there's just little bits of plaster where plaster's been removed from the wall. There was some lovely panelling on the sides there, because right down the bottom was where there was a bit of a library. There was some bookcases positioned in panelling. The panelling had been taken off the wall and sold again, asset stripped. So we're going to go through this scare maze little area where there's storage into the great banqueting hall, and if we stop at the window, I'll tell you something about the window, and then you'll be able to take lots and lots of photographs before we go on the roof.
The fire alarm call point is an original lever.
Now, I can't put into words just how important this window is. Very important, you've got the covering here. We've got 27 glass panes and windows, and the ones at the top are the Earls of Shrewsbury and all the great families connected to them. As I mentioned, the De Verdens were one. So there's the Earl of Shrewsbury. Notice the house there and the lion in the middle. Also notice here we've got the hounds here, the lion on the shield. Now Latin, it says Prestia Cumpla. Now if any of you have done Latin at school, Prestia Cumpla in English translates as ready to accomplish, and obviously the 15th and 16th Earls did exactly that. Now this window, I was saying, is extremely important because it was designed by Pugin. It's the biggest window in the country, built under private commission by Pugin for a private homeowner outside the Palace of Westminster itself. That is how important that window is. The great banqueting hall here, it looks a bit medieval, and that's exactly what Pugin wanted it to look like a medieval banqueting hall. So work began in 1849, and it wasn't completed until 1856. But neither Pugin nor the 16th Earl lived to see the completion because both of them died in 1852. We'll hear more about that a little bit later, what happened to Pugin and the Earl. Now here we have a wonderful crystal and brass chandelier that comes down. Or where is it now? Well, it currently resides in the Houses of Parliament. Now, if we ask them to give it back, I very much doubt that Parliament will let us have our chandelier back. But that's where it originally hung, and if you ever go into the Houses of Parliament, formerly known as the proper name, the Palace of Westminster, you will see hanging from there. So please take lots and lots of photographs. Look at the Minton tiles as well here that are still restored. And look at the detail of the hounds. You can even see the teeth and the tongues and the mouths of the dogs. So, like I said, Talbot, extinct hunting dog, ancestor of today's bloodhound. But originally this would be bathed in light. It wouldn't be dark like it is today. So we're going to go onto the roof. Just a few steps, not like the uneven ones in the garden. So beautiful views on the top.
So cold in here.
Where Mutiny Bay is, that is the old stables. So where the loos and the picnic area within Mutiny Bay, what looks like a castle is actually the stables. It was built so that the Earl couldn't see the farm buildings that were beyond there, just to beautify it. Don't forget the lake that you see in front was man-made as well, so that, as I said, none of them are natural. We've got some wonderful views. And on today, if you look at the distant ridge in the distance, those are the Weaver Hills site and the burial ground and the water sources, springs. And you'll see a monument on the top, but if you've got good eyesight, and that's the trig point which marks the high spot of the Weavers. So let's get up on the roof.
That's what it's meant to look
So feel free to go down the steps here. You can go right to the end where you've got a close view over the lake.
So to give you a bit of context as to what we are looking at over this way. So we've got 4 line areas of the towers. This is area 4, so that covers dark forest, a lot of David Gallions, also Oblivion as well. We've got Merlin Magic Nature Studios North, which is that way turns over there. That's one of the south. Next is the bar. Next to it.
Unfortunately, somebody asked me what it would cost to restore this, and if it was 850,000 for the conservatory, it would be in the hundreds of millions for this, and they probably wouldn't even do it in my lifetime if they got the money. Yeah. Yeah.
The house up.
Yeah, always ask. Always ask. Yeah. Is there anyone there?
Oblivion's back now. Huh? Oblivion's back now. Break down all day.
It's fine. us to store that tree. So, you know that we can't do like designs of the tree like that. So they built Oblivion, and it was over the tree height. So it was told they need to fly away. You see that very big tree there? Yeah. That wasn't there. Someone picked up the phone to America. Can I order one large red tree? They shipped it all the way and haven't popped it. Blue card. Great, thank you. Where there's a
Duck open now.
Brazil.
Yeah, he just sent us a tree over.
He can't.
700.
1 tree with 236. Yeah. Gilded gold flats as well. So I don't know if anyone heard what he was saying. You know where that radio was just in the back of the wall?
Yeah, the bell tower.
That's the bell tower. Actually, it used to have a lantern there.
Oh, okay.
So
Just makes you wonder like how they got up there though to like fix it.
well, health and safety was a thing in those days. Someone would have like leaders climbing up. I mean, there might have been a roof on the ceiling.
Yeah.
It might have just been beams and then people just running across the beams.
That's what
Windows. Yeah.
So many years, they spend so much money on their
Yeah.
They have to store so much. So I think it was the last restoration was last year.
The dressing rooms for our scare users. So the attic trailer shelters, which occupies the fusion rooms, which are just to your right over there up the stairs, and the cast will come in here and have their breaks and sort of quite nice and so it's a good example of the modern project and the fusion rooms and we use fireworks as like our generators and things for electricity, and hopefully we can start to move away from that, focus more on the heritage and restoration of our ruins at the moment. But this year, obviously, still be
And just if you notice, sites in the around the there was a fancy ornate piece of perhaps marble or some sort of stone mantelpiece, which was obviously fancy enough to be chipped away and removed for some reason, or so the reason why these fireplaces obviously still here because they simply were not worth taking out and carrying off. Now we're going to go down to the chapel. We're going to pause briefly outside the chapel where the tour will conclude. I'll explain about a brief history of the chapel, and then you can take lots of photographs inside. We'll be able to answer any of the questions that you may have when you're in there. It really is a beautiful spot, and also tell you what happened to Pugy and the 16th Earl. For example, why did they both die in the same year, 1852? At the top there's a little museum a bit, which shows you beautiful altar carving. Fantastically beautiful. It sold in 1924 for £1.50, 30 shillings. And the panelling all gone. You wouldn't have thought it could get any worse, could it? Unfortunately it could, and it did. So from 1924 to 1951 it was largely empty and it was used just for parade services. Now in 1952, not content with asset stripping it by taking away fixtures and fittings, including the beautiful carvings, they came after the stained glass windows. The stained glass was removed, hence the 1980s design by Claire Venables. In the 1990s it was placed there. So that was sold. There's original photographs dated about 1951, which show, as I was telling the gentleman here, as you go in and go down towards the window, on the right hand side you'll see big holes in the wall, and that was a level where there was a balcony, and there was pews on the balcony, and you could look down over the balcony and there was pews below, also shown in the photograph. But the following year, 1952, they'd all gone, not only the pews but the balcony sold off. As you go down as well towards the window, if you turn right behind you, you can see the level where the Talbot family would worship on a Sunday service, because don't forget that until 1842 the locals didn't have their own church in Alton, so they'd be on the bottom part of the church, the Talbots would be on the top part. So I mentioned Pugin and the 16th Earl. So they both died in 1852. As you've been in the great banqueting hall, and that was completed after they died. So what happened to them? Well, first the Earl, he was very fond on going on holiday to Italy with his wife. 1852 was no different, and they decided to go to Italy again. They went to Naples, Italy. Unfortunately, he contracted malaria and suddenly died. He was 61 years of age. Well, what about Pugin? I think Pugin probably worked himself to death, because he seemed to have fingers in pies everywhere. Local little churches, or not so little, like the one in Cheadle, working on the Houses of Parliament. This was one of his last commissions. Don't forget, he was working on the great big house on the hill that you'll see as you leave Alton Towers. And one of his last commissions, as you go into here and look up at the ceiling, it's a stylized version of the heavens. You've got angels with gold gilding. He did the gold gilding on the angels, and he was responsible for the stylized painting of the heavens. So he probably worked himself to death, because one day he just collapsed and fell into a coma and died. He was 40 years of age. The Earl was 61 years of age. So that was Pugin and the Earl. And when we walk in here, I normally obviously lower my voice is going in there because there's chapel, and the 16th Earl's funeral service was held in this very chapel. So you'll be able to go in. If you've got any questions need to ask, then just ask us. In modern times as well, it was used as a model railway from 1957 to about 1993. Yes, 1993, model railway. Look to the floor. I told you all buildings give out a story, give a picture. You can see the layout of the model railway. The little booth on the left is where you could buy tickets for the model railway. 1993, it was gone. It was sold off in auction. So obviously that's gone there. So that's the story of the house, the gardens, the area, the valley, going back over 2,000 years, and finally the chapel. So the only thing left for me to do is to thank you all for coming on this last 2024 tour. You have been an absolutely splendid group, and I hope you've enjoyed the tour as much as I have, showing you everything, and I was really excited in showing you all these beautiful sights. And when you go home today and somebody says, what have you done today? And you say, I went to Alton Towers, and they look at you and say, rides. I'll say, no, Alton Towers isn't just about rides. It's about history, culture and heritage. Thank you for your time today, and welcome to the chapel. Go on in. Go on in and take photos.
I would just say I've heard a few bangs in there to
Yeah.
I'm not.
Lovely. Oh, Jesus. Wow. Oh, wow. Jesus. So we have just finished the iconic Towers and Garden tour, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. Very different to what we're normally used to when we come to Alton Towers, obviously, but it was nice to sort of get to sort of experience all the culture, the heritage, the history, and sort of everything else that comes behind towers that, you know, that sometimes we probably don't normally think about when we're here. And, you know, it's slap bang in your face, but yet, you know, we sort of take that for advantage. So it was really nice to be able to sort of go around, explore a different side to Alton Towers. And yeah, well, we really enjoyed that. It was about 3 hours in length. There was a lot of walking. So yeah, if that was the last one for this year, I believe. So I think they were just trying to sort of gauge on how popular it was, to see whether it was sort of something that they want to bring in as a permanent fixture. And from what I can gather, it sounds like that it's been doing quite well. So I reckon we'll probably see a return of that next year. So if that's something that you want to go and check out, make sure that you keep an eye on the Alton Towers website, because I reckon that'll be coming up next year, 2025. So thank you very much for joining this vlog. We've had a lovely day. We're going to go and enjoy a little bit more of the park now and finish off our day here. So yeah, thank you for coming into the vlog, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.